voices, rise up and fight with me. Time has come to raise our voices, rise up and fight with me. Time has come. Time has come. Well, yeah, I spit blood when I wake up. Sink porcelain stain, choking up brain matter and makeup. Just 2 days since the mainframe went down and I'm still messed up. Room feels like a meat freezer, I dangling like cold cuts. Missed calls, answer phones from people I just don't trust. Mirror talk, fake love, but I'll take a pound of your flesh before you take a piece of my pay stub. White roses, black doves, godmother, rise up. I need you to see me for what I have become. My mind, those eyes like fire. I'm a winged insect, you're a funeral pyre. Come now, bite through these wires. I'm a waking hell and the gods grow tired. Reset my patient violence along both lines of a pathway higher. Grow back your sharpest teeth, you know my desire. I guess it goes to show, does it not, that we've no idea what we've got until we lose it. And no amount of love will keep it around if we don't choose it. And I don't know what it's got
why your friends always hating on me. Fuck them, no, I did this all by myself. Matter of fact, I ain't never asked no one for help, and that's why I don't pick up my phone when it ring. None of my exes is over Lil P. Nobody flexing as much as I be. That's why she text me and tell me she love me. She know that someday I'll be over the sea, making my money and smoking my weed. I think it's funny, she opened up to me, get comfortable with me. Once I got it coming, I love her, she love me. I know that I'm nothing like someone the family want me to be. If I find a way, would you walk it with me? Look at my face while you talking to me, cause we only have one conversation a week. Can I get one conversation at least? Shout out to everyone making my beats. You helping me preach, this music's the only thing keeping the peace when I fall into pieces. Look at the sky tonight, all of those stars have a reason to shine, a reason like mine, and I'm falling to pieces. Look at the sky tonight, all of those stars have a reason.
What's going on, guys? Let me stop all this music here. I don't know who all's in here, but before we even start tonight's episode, I will just talk about a couple things. I did figure out how to get a permanent link for my Discord. So my Discord page is pretty much done. So if you go to my YouTube channel now, in the bio, there should be a link to my Discord page, and that link should be permanent, from what I figured out anyways. So yeah, anybody that wants to join the Discord page, all you got to do is go to my bio now on YouTube. There should be a link there, should have the Discord symbol next to it. Just click that shit, and yeah, you'll be able to join. And then I guess the second thing is, this episode's kind of inspired by a YouTube channel called My Retro Life. This dude, I've been watching him for, I don't know, about a week now or so. And the dude is just so lucky to have all these, home videos that his dad took. And it's like his whole life in gaming. So I just thought it would be cool to talk about, like, he pretty much has the beginning of his gaming all the way up to like more current day stuff, although his dad passed away in like 2007 from cancer. It's just a really crazy show on YouTube that, like, it's just unbelievable that people have that much on film of, back in the 80s and 90s, and are able to digitize it. Yeah, so that's kind of what spawned this idea, and I've done pretty much every other episode on music, so I figured it was like time to do something different. Although I do have another episode planned soon for Rocky Erickson. But yeah, so that's the plan. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that there were updates on the Discord link. I figured out how to make it permanent, so it's not just like it'll be up for a couple days and you go to click it and it doesn't work. The Discord link is permanent. But yeah, so Discord is up and running. Making as many changes as I can kind of to the channel, just to get it to where I'm good with it. I know a lot of people either watch it or don't watch it, but it's going to be there. So, but yeah, so, and then I plan on at some point getting back into some more old school games. I really want to play through Castlevania Bloodlines on the Genesis. I've been playing that quite a bit lately. But yeah, so yeah, if you're new to the channel, all of that info hopefully will be helpful. Thanks for joining, and if you subscribed, I definitely appreciate it. If you catch this video later, that's cool too. I'm always going to leave these up, so I guess we will just get right into my introduction to gaming and games that kind of mean a lot to me, or definitely, made an impact. So my introduction to gaming would have been the NES, but more specifically, it wasn't an NES that I had at the time. I was at a babysitter's house, and I definitely remember that's one of my earliest memories of gaming in general was just being at this babysitter's house and playing the original Super Mario Brothers for the first time, and just like learning the game, and just by a couple hours of me playing this game, I just knew that I would, this is what I wanted to do. Like, I loved playing games, well, that's how it was building into that for sure. So I think, and I don't know how old I was when this happened. I would assume that I was around 4 or so. But yeah, I definitely remember playing that OG Super Mario Brothers, and my babysitter showing me how to get the infinite lives, and just really getting to learn the game was awesome. But yeah, so for my 5th birthday was when I actually did get an NES. My mom got it for me for my 5th birthday. I definitely know it came packing with the Duck Hunt and OG Mario Brothers. But I definitely remember having some other games, and the other games that I remember having were, I definitely had OG Mario Brothers. I had Road Blasters, which was an arcade port. I had never played the arcade, so I didn't know what Road Blasters was, but it was a really cool, early style, timed racing shooting game. Really, it was really unique at the time. I definitely remember having, I didn't have a copy of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, but I definitely had a copy of Punch-Out. And I definitely remember having, what was the other game that I had early on? I think it was Track and Field. And, slowly I would get games like Super Mario Brothers 2 and Super Mario Brothers 3, the bigger titles. But I didn't have a whole lot on the NES, but I played a lot on the NES as a kid. And, games that I definitely held on to or were fucking just amazing to me. Or games that I would still play is Mike Tyson's Punch-Out will always be probably my number one on NES, just because with the amount of time that I spent with that game. And, I definitely, that's another gaming story I remember is, on my 6th birthday, I got a Game Genie, and I wanted that Game Genie specifically for Punch-Out. And I got to really experience a different side of Punch-Out with a Game Genie, but Punch-Out was huge to me. So yeah, I definitely played the shit out of that. That was a game that I just beat recently for the first time in my fucking life. I'm gonna be 40 years old in May, so yeah, it took me quite some time to actually finish that game. But I never really got, like I've said before, I never really got serious about beating the game. It was just a game that I loved to play, and it definitely reminded me of my childhood. Other games that I really liked on the NES was like Double Dragon 2. The Mega Man games were great. Super Mario Brothers 3, obviously. A lot of people, that's their, like, number one. I totally get that. And, like, even, like, my earliest memory of ever beating a game, I definitely remember going to my cousin's house, and I believe they had, if they didn't have it, I rented it or something, but I definitely played Bad Dudes from the beginning all the way to the end, and that was I remember it being a brutal game back in the day, and I've gone back and played it since, and it didn't really hold up to me like I remember it being, but that was my first memory of the first game that I remember beating was Bad Dudes. And at that point, I hadn't played a whole lot of NES games, but yeah, throughout me owning an NES, I definitely borrowed a lot of games and, played NES at other people's houses. So I played a good portion of games on the NES, and that was kind of like, not only my introduction to gaming, but the system that I loved at the time. NES was just it definitely was what got me into being a gamer, or I knew that, as soon as I started playing Nintendo games, I knew that, like, that's what I loved to do. And I've kind of touched on it before, but not really going to go in depth. But at points, it was kind of an escape for me at home. It became like where I would go to, like, just, I didn't really have anybody to vent to, I guess. So, other than my brother, but yeah, it became where I went to escape. Gaming kind of became this thing that just, like, if I felt a certain way, I could just jump into a game and, like, be part of what was going on in that world at that time. I know that kind of sounds crazy, but I'm sure that's what it was for a lot of people. Even a lot of YouTubers that I've watched before, their reasoning for loving some of these games is because it takes them back to certain points in their lives, and it's no different than any other art form, as far as, music and everything like that goes. So, but yeah, the NES would have been my introduction to gaming, and definitely what got the ball rolling. And then I definitely I played Nintendo first, and then I played Atari later on down the road, which is kind of backwards, but I definitely remember my grandparents getting, like, an Atari and, like, a box full of games at a garage sale. And we had this TV down in their basement, and we would just sit down there and game, hook up whatever system that we had. And if we were staying a couple nights, we just, all of our, all the cousins, all my cousins and my brother would just sit down there and just game. And that's another major part of gaming, I think. And why we look back to gaming back then is like, it does, you had you made these memories with these people because of these games and stuff. So, I think that's a big part of gaming. It kind of brought people, especially in the 80s and 90s, if you gamed with your siblings or if you gamed with your parents, then you definitely know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so I played Atari after that, and after maybe it was just my young brain and not being appreciative of Atari at the time. Nintendo being my introduction, Atari just was so outdated to me. It felt so outdated to me. Although there were games that I enjoyed playing on Atari, it just wasn't to me what the Nintendo was. Um, I think the next console that I would go on to own was my dad got us a Sega, and it came with a decent amount of games. And that system then would kind of overtake my love for Nintendo. Although, like NES was huge to me, dude. NES was, I mean, I got a fucking Nintendo controller tattooed on my hand. Like, NES was a big part of my life. But when I started playing Genesis, and it's so weird because I can relate to that YouTube channel, My Retro Life, being such a fan of Nintendo and then jumping into the Genesis, wow, dude, I really had a lot of great experiences on the Genesis, and I think a lot of that time was spent gaming either with my brother or my dad, and or just watching my dad play these games. Games that I wasn't really good at the time. What's up, Britt? Yeah, games that I necessarily wasn't great at the time, but I would watch him play these games, and definitely remember watching a lot on, watching a lot of my dad run some Genesis games, like the one game that, and I still love it. I guess it goes either way. I don't know how a lot of people feel about it, but Judge Dredd on the Sega Genesis is up there for me, and I think it's just the time that I spent with my dad learning the game and just really dive. And I loved the Judge Dredd movie in the '90s. I was that kind of kid, So yeah, Genesis had a lot, and we had a decent Genesis collection, the collection that I still have to this day. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. So much could be said about Genesis. The games that I loved Gunstar Heroes on the Genesis. That's a game that I would love to go back and play. Castlevania Bloodlines, which I just played on stream yesterday. That game, I loved that game when I was younger. Target Earth, I will remember watching my dad play and beat, and it's a super, super hard-ass game. We used to play, oh man, it's such a bad Sega game. It was called Slaughter Sport. If you've ever seen anything about Slaughter Sport, you definitely know what I'm talking about. It was just a very weird fighting game. It was, I don't know if it was meant to be like a ripoff of Mortal Kombat, or it seemed like it tried to be its own thing, but it was like looking back and going back and playing it, it's such a bad game. Let me see here. I'll actually see if I can do this, if I can just bring up some Slaughter Sport, just so people know how bad this game is if you haven't ever played it. Slaughter Sport is, I guess, the only way that I can describe the game is just weird, and the controls are fucking terrible. All right, hold on here. Let's see. Set this up to where I can show you guys what I'm seeing. Maybe it's not gonna let me show you. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna let me show anybody. Hold on here. Here we go. Here we go. There we go. All right. This is Slaughter Sport.
Welcome to the Fight Palace.
Welcome to the Fight Palace. Oh man, this music takes me back. Yeah, this game is absolute dog shit trash, but I definitely spent a lot of time playing this game. So yeah, it's, I don't know, for me, nostalgic, but at the same time, not a good game. I'll just show some fighting. This is not me playing this, by the way. It's just video for it. Yeah, it's not a good game, and you had to you had to enter codes in order to be different characters. It wasn't like there was a character select screen and you just picked your characters. You literally had to put in a code in order to pick certain characters. Luckily for us, somebody had gone through the whole fucking game and wrote down all the codes, which, wherever that poor bastard is, I hope that he at some point got that time back in his life, because wow. But yeah, there was every single code written down in the back. And we got these games used because, you know, Sega games weren't fucking cheap back in the day. But this is one that we did have the manual, did have the box for, and I definitely remember somebody had gone through Slaughter Sport and wrote down all the codes for the characters. So my brother, my dad, and my sister and I all would, you know, fight against each other with these weird ass characters. And I mean, that what I showed isn't even the like a quarter of how weird the game is. Obviously, the introduction with the dude that's huge and has a mouth on his fucking stomach. You never see that type of shit in a video game. It's just odd. It was just odd at the time. So yeah, I had a lot of crazy times playing the Genesis. My dad and I love to play Mutant League Football. That's definitely another one of my top favorite Genesis games. What other games really? I love Streets of Rage 2. Golden Axe is a classic on Sega. Obviously, everybody played fucking Sonic, and I loved Sonic just as much as most people loved Sonic, probably. So, yeah. I definitely remember playing a lot of Judge Dredd. Definitely played. Yeah, the dude's crazy. The dude was crazy, and that was the guy with the mouth in his stomach was the end boss for the game. I'm telling you right now when I say that it's probably one of the hardest games I've ever played in my life, and not based on difficulty and how shit the controls are. But yeah, I spent a lot of time playing I played a lot of Madden on Sega. Played a lot of NBA Jam. Sports games I feel were like kind of hotter around that time. Definitely, if you had a Sega, you probably had NBA Jam, and if you didn't, I don't know what the fuck you were doing, unless you just weren't into basketball. But yeah, Sega was crazy, and around that same time, I played Game Boy for the first time. Yeah, my first like actual experience with the OG Game Boy, like the fucking brick ones, that had the green screen and shit, yellow and green. I played a lot of Super Mario Brothers 2, the 6 golden coins one. That's an amazing game still to this day for a Game Boy game. One of the better Mario games for sure. I played Bonks on. That was my first introduction to Bonks, and I definitely played. I played Turbo Graphics in my childhood, but it wasn't. But it wasn't mine, and it was definitely like the crazy part about this is the first ever place that I played Turbo Graphics. My brother now lives in that house, so it's extra weird, but it's so crazy. Like going back to that house, like instantly remember like playing Turbo Graphics there, and I wasn't a huge Turbo Graphics fan, and I've played a lot of Turbo Graphics games since then, and definitely appreciate the system, but I don't have any actual nostalgic memories of Turbo Graphics other than playing it the couple times that I did at that house. But then going from Genesis, the next system that I would own, I remember my dad surprised me, my brother, and my sister with the PlayStation 1. And again, like when we got that system, we had a decent amount of games for it right off the rip. Had the first Tomb Raider game, had Resident Evil 1. What else did we have? it was a wrestling game. I can't believe that it's the name is that's crazy. It's a wrestling game, and it's a super obscure wrestling game on the PS1. Oh, Power Move Pro Wrestling is what it's called. We had that game. And we had a couple other ones. I don't remember all, but we had like probably 5 or 6 PlayStation games when my dad got us the PS1. And then I loved PS1 so much that, I had to have one at home. So one Christmas, my mom took me and my brother to the store and just was like, hey, get whatever you want. And I definitely remember just the PlayStation 1 was the only thing that I wanted in, like, 1 or 2 games or some shit. And I bet it was a Twisted Metal game. I think it was a Twisted Metal game. Probably 3 or 4 because it was out at the time. But yeah, PlayStation 1 was huge to me. Like seeing those graphics for the first time. And I think I told this story before, but it probably needs to be in this video. My first recollection of even seeing PS1, my grandma had passed away. My dad's mom had passed away from cancer. And I was like 12 years old. And I was really attached to her, and I was really close to her at the time. And it just fucking devastated me. And so around the time that she passed away, my dad and I went down to visit family. And while we were there, my great aunt rented a PS1 for me because I think it was just to get my mind off of things. And I definitely remember I rented, it was Tomb Raider, Rallycross, and I think WWF, the arcade game, maybe. Oh no, it was WWF in your house, and it actually, the copy that I rented would not play, so I didn't get to play. I think I might have got it to load up one time or something, and it didn't seem that there was anything wrong with the disc, but like I said, I was like 12 or 13 around this time. I believe I was 12, but and then yeah, I remember borrowing a PlayStation from my cousin before I got mine, and so that I had one at home. And he let me borrow a bunch of games, and just like, it was like for months that he let me borrow this thing, and it just really drew me into PlayStation. That, and when I would play at my dad's, like, I'll never forget, Resident Evil 1 will always sit so high for me. And it's crazy because I don't even really have that much experience playing the game. I watched my dad play Resident Evil 1. And it was just like a fucking eerie game. Like, there was nothing like Resident Evil 1 at the time that I saw anyways. I mean, there were games like Alone in the Dark and stuff like that came out before it, but nothing that I had seen blew my mind quite like Resident Evil did. And I loved zombies, so Resident Evil just, I don't know, it just seemed so cool to me. And like, just remember like getting actually scared watching certain parts of that game because it was such a crazy story, and in the mansion and everything. So Resident Evil 1, like, I'll always think about that game and PS1, like, and it's crazy because that's one that I should probably go back and play through. For me, it was Resident Evil 2, because that was the one that I played from the beginning to end, and I didn't really invest that much time into Resident Evil 1. I just watched my dad play that game a lot. Um, Metal Gear Solid. I'll never forget. My dad bought that, and he had it at his place. So when I would go over there on the weekends, again, I watched him play it, but at the same time, like, I made my own save on a memory card, or I think I got my own memory card at one point, and I ended up playing through Metal Gear Solid, and I loved that. I still love that game. It's probably the game that I beat the most. From time to time, I don't know why, I'll just get the itch to go back and completely play through Metal Gear Solid 1. And it still holds up for me anyways. I don't know if it's just the nostalgic of it, but I loved the story of Metal Gear, and it was kind of more so like how advanced that game felt for the time. Like all the things that you could do to, like, you could distract, guards, and go opposite direction of them and sneak into these vents, and like it just, the game was so crazy for that time. Like, and it was one of the first games that I definitely remember getting like really just hooked on, like, these story driven single player games. But yeah, I love the Twisted Metal series. I definitely played them and owned them all. All the ones that were, I did not have, I think it's called Twisted Metal Small Brawl with the RC cars. I did not have that game. But yeah, the Twisted Metal series was awesome to me. Definitely stood out to me. I didn't really play a lot of them, but again, watched my dad play a lot of Tomb Raider back in the day. I did play a little bit of Tomb Raider 2, and I might have actually beaten Tomb Raider 2 at some point. But yeah, the experience that I had gaming on PlayStation 1, and I also really liked Nintendo 64 at the time too. I played Nintendo 64 at, actually, Scott, if you're still in here, at your house. Dennis had that 64. I definitely remember spending a lot of time playing that, and then I would play it with my buddy Brian. We played tons and tons of the WCW and WWF games, or WWE games at the time, and like just countless hours spent playing those fucking wrestling games, and loved all the 3D platformers on N64. Obviously Super Mario Brother 64, but I have never beat that one. I really liked games like Banjo-Kazooie and Conkers. Yeah, I loved N64, but I played a lot more PlayStation 1 than N64, and we would go on to collect a decent amount of games for PS1. I don't remember how many games we had at my dad's, but I know it was a decent stack, you know. That was back in the day when you could go to game stores like the Exchange, Video Game Exchange, and stuff like that, and it wasn't really like an arm and a leg for games, and you just appreciated those games that you bought yourself, you know. But yeah, I definitely remember gaming a lot. I mean, there's so many stories that I could tell about PS1 games, like when I was growing up, neighborhood best friend of mine at the time, Paul Cedra, his family, the Cedras, they had a PS1 as well, and I would go down there and game with those guys, and like just always had a blast playing. We played a lot of like Crash Bandicoot down there, and Paul really liked Jet Moto. There were so many awesome fucking times playing PS1 games. That system just you definitely, if you played PlayStation 1, you definitely probably have tons and tons of fucking memories if you grew up playing it anyways. There were so many good games on that system. And still some of them, like, I just went back and played through Clock Tower, which is another one, That was a game that my dad showed me. That was an early game that we had. Actually, that was the game that I was trying to think of that we had. Clock Tower was different to me, and it still had like a Resident Evil feel to it because it was like a survival horror type game. And yeah, that game was just awesome at the time. And I can't really say that I have definite nostalgia for Clock Tower, but I don't think that it lived up to what I thought it was going to be story wise. But I still loved the game, and yeah, those are I played a lot of Mortal Kombat 4 on the PS1. That was one of my favorite games for a while. There were so many games that I played the shit out of on PS1. That system alone, probably the most time that I've put into a console, probably. I don't know, PS2 is probably pretty close, and oh man, the first experience with PS2, I was in JVS at the time. Yeah, Lorain County JVS at the time. And a dude in our class, he had a PS2, and we would go over there and get stoned and shit, and definitely played Grand Theft Auto 3. That was one of my like first memories of PS2. I didn't really kind of wasn't into gaming for a little while during the PS1 and PS2 release. But yeah, so I remember playing GTA 3 over there and just being mind blown about this system. And so this is a great story. I'll never forget. But my best friend at the time, and I'm not going to say his name because obvious reasons, but he got this idea. He got this idea to his mom had passed away like maybe 2 months before this, 3 months before this, and he just kind of was in a bad place, and we got into gaming and hanging out and getting stoned, as fucking teenagers, you know what I mean? Just normal teenage shit. And so I'll never forget, we were at JVS one day, and he's like, "Hey, dude, at lunchtime, let's go to the mall." And I'm like, "For what?" And he goes, "Dude, I think I'm going to get a PS2. And I'm like, "That's awesome, dude. Let's do this." So we go to the fucking mall. We go to Midway Mall, actually. And It was, I don't even know what, it might have been Babbage's around that time. I don't know what it was called at the time. But he had a card that was linked to a bank, but bigger purchases would have had to go through his dad, because it was money that was left to him, basically. And so they asked, did he have any type of military ID or anything like that could prove that his dad was the person on, and he just so happened to have like his military card, and pulled it out, gave it to the people, and then he ended up getting it was like GTA 3, I want to say Twisted Metal Black around the same time, if not close, not far after, I should say. But yeah, so Twisted Metal Black, and what was it? State of Emergency, I think it was. And yeah, dude, we played the fucking living shit out of those games. I remember beating GTA 3. I remember beating Twisted Metal Black with everybody, and to this day, the Twisted Metal Black storylines are like just the best. Like, it's really fucking dark game. Just really has this eerie vibe to it that the other games don't have. Just a awesome ass title for the PS2. But yeah, PS2 has some of my favorite games. One of my favorite games is Kingdom Hearts, and 1 and 2 is on PS2, and those games are just amazing. I don't know why. I was never big into anime or anything like that, but maybe it was because I grew up a Disney kid, and just loved that the Disney characters were in this like kind of almost Final Fantasy style world, and some of the Final Fantasy characters were in it. Not that I was a big Final Fantasy fan. Matter of fact, I've never played through any of them, like, and beat them, so I was never really big into Final Fantasy, but there was just something that stood out to me about Kingdom Hearts, and that's one of my favorite games of all time. Just really loved that story, loved building the ship, and going to all these worlds, all the Disney worlds and shit, and you didn't know at the time, which world you were going to stumble upon. I played a lot of that game. I did not play through all of the second one. But yeah, some of those games, Shadow of Colossus is incredible on PS2. There's so many games for PS2 that are amazing. That was my first time I ever played Katamari, was on PS2, and loved that series. Like, it's such just a relax and chill and waste some time type game. I think shortly after PS2, I played the OG Xbox, and that would go on to be one of my favorite systems of all time. And I was pretty much what you would consider a Sony fanboy up until, I really started to get into the OG Xbox, and still have one, still have a shitload of games for it. Actually, I played the PS2 version, but a game that definitely stood out to me, and I still have my copy of it on the OG Xbox, is Silent Hill 2. That game was incredible at the time. Still holds up. That's one that I plan to play through, but I want to do the enhanced version, that a mod team, put together, because I really think that version it's an awesome game. I've played through it since, and yeah, just a great mod to that game. And if you were ever a fan of that series, I haven't played through Silent Hill 1, haven't played through Silent Hill 3, but definitely have all three of them. And then I totally skipped over, because I knew I would talk a lot about it, the Dreamcast. I had right around the time that PS2 was talking about being launched and everything like that. But I was, grew up a Sega kid. So the shit that I was seeing for the Dreamcast just looked awesome. And I'll never forget, my stepdad at the time, Nelson, took me to Flashback Games in South Amherst, or no, not South Amherst, it would have been Amherst area, and got me my first Sega Dreamcast, and I think I got Ready to Rumble boxing for it, and I think that was the only game that I had at the time. But I would later, go on to buy so many games for Dreamcast. That system is definitely up there for me. I would say that it's probably number one for me. If I had to, pick my favorite console. I just think that the Dreamcast had such a awesome library, but it wasn't full of shitty games. The Dreamcast just had so much going for it, but what it didn't have going for it was PS2 had released with a DVD PlayStation 2 had released with a laser for DVDs, and had Sega have done that with the Dreamcast, I think that it would have survived longer. And then the other part of that is the game Shenmue helped kind of single-handedly destroy the Dreamcast, because of the amount of money that it cost to make that game. And it didn't do that well. But the crazier part is Shenmue is really, really an amazing game. It's up there for me. It's one of my favorite games ever. The story, I watched My Retro Life talk about Shenmue earlier today on YouTube, and his dad got it for him for Christmas. My dad was the one that introduced me to Shenmue. He bought it for himself on Dreamcast, because we would buy each other games, or we would buy our own games. But my dad definitely ended up getting a copy of Shenmue, and so I would watch him play it, and then I got my own copy of it, and I ended up playing through and beating the game. And that game, another game that was just fucking groundbreaking at the time. Shenmue was like My Retro Life says, he said, when he played through the game, it felt like he knew these characters and the place his whole entire life. And that's really a solid way to sum that up, because you get so attached to what's going on in Shenmue. And I think it's the storyline just kind of hooks you in. It can be a monotonous game at times, but I think the payoff for the game is overall, it's way worth playing. That game is way worth playing through. It's just unbelievable. I don't think you'll have the same feeling for it now if you Yeah, Shenmue is amazing, dude. I still have a copy of Shenmue for Dreamcast. That's one that's probably getting up there in price now, but it was a first of its kind, like I can understand why the amount of money went into that game. And you either felt one way or the other about the game. There wasn't a lot of people that really bought the game, like I said, but that game was, if you played through it, you know what I'm talking about. It was just groundbreaking for the time. Like, there were so many things you could do in the game that never was a thing, at the time. But, like, you could go to these little stores in the city, and this all takes place over in Japan. But you could go to these stores, and outside of the stores, there would be these little gumball machines, and you could put money that you earned in-game into these machines and get these little collectible figures. And, like, there was a good amount to collect. So, like, while you're playing this game and experiencing this crazy-ass storyline, you could also go about trying to collect all of these little figurines and shit. And that's not like even... There's so many things you could buy, like pop out of pop machines. And I think certain cans would be like... If you got a certain colored can, you would get something for free. It was just like there were so many things that you could go into arcades and play old Sega games. Sega arcade games like Space Harrier and like the full game within the game that you were playing. It was just, there was not much like Shenmue at the time. And like that's a game that like I said, my dad introduced me to that game. I immediately was hooked watching him play it, and just his excitement for the game, like, because I could tell how crazy the game was. Like, it was just like nothing you've ever played before at the time. And so, like I said, it might not have the same feel for some people. You may not have that same feeling for it, but I definitely believe Shenmue was an underrated kind of gem on the Dreamcast. Just a crazy fucking game. But yeah, I owned games like Zombies Revenge, and that's kind of become for those that do watch my channel, There's No Time. That all came from Zombies Revenge, which I've been playing since I was a kid, like 1999-ish. I was probably 15 years old. Yeah, I was 15 in 99. So, yeah, just playing these older games like Dynamite Cop was another awesome one. That just a game you could not play on any other. It felt like it definitely was like an arcade port, and it was an amazing game. Maybe at some point I'll have to play Dynamite Cop. That's a really cool game on the Dreamcast. And I played a lot of Power Stone. Power Stone was a unique ass fighting game. Still, I would say it still holds up. It is, it's a 4-player fighting game. Up to 4 people can fight at once, I believe. And there's these gems that you find throughout playing, and it's a timed match, but it's a 3D fighting game. And if you collect all 3 of these gems that you find, then you get the super powered version of your character, and you can do like a bunch of special moves and stuff. It was definitely a unique fighting game for the time. Power Stone I don't, in my opinion, still holds up. It's a game that I would play. I played a ton of Sega Bass Fishing on there, and the NBA and NFL 2K games were phenomenal on Dreamcast. If you were into sports, Dreamcast just had so much going on for it, and Crazy Taxi, which if you played Crazy Taxi in the arcade, it was literally the same game, but you could play it in your home. So Dreamcast really was amazing in that aspect of a lot of these games that you were playing were like arcade ports, but they were true arcade ports. Uh, Sega was Sega was a great company, but I'll tell you, Sega also fucked their fans, and there's a lot of people that talk, about that. Like Sega, Dreamcast could have been the saving grace, but I think it was the final nail in the coffin for Sega because Sega had released a Genesis, which did really well, and again, I had nothing but great times on that console. They also released Sega CD around that time. Um, I never really got to play Sega CD, and Sega CD, from what I saw, didn't really look that much different than most Sega games that I was already seeing. Like, I know that there are great Sega CD games, and I would later go on to play Sega CD, but never had one during the time. But then they also, not long after they released, well, it was a little while after they released the Sega CD, they released the 32X. And, the 32X was, in my mind, and a lot of people would say the same, was kind of a ripoff, and it felt like you were paying this amount of money to buy this add-on to your console, and it was marketed as 32 bits, like 32X is what it was called, and it was playing games that weren't much better looking than the Sega games that you were already playing, and if you played the Sega CD, it had CD audio games, so they were like, Sega CD's audio was perfect, it was CD quality. But yeah, so then they released the 32X, and not long after that they released the Saturn. And actually, Scott, you were the first person that I ever knew that owned a Saturn. um I I didn't really have a lot of experience with the Saturn until I got older. But yeah, if you miss the Genesis days, I mean, some of those games still hold up, but I don't know, it's one of those things that, like, I grew up a Sega kid, and I never had a Super Nintendo until I got older. Most people that I knew had Super Nintendo, and I did play a lot of Super Nintendo, but I definitely grew up with a Genesis, and um, basically played a lot of my games. Yeah, you definitely had a Sega Saturn, dude. I remember you got it for Christmas the same year that Dennis got the N64. Like, that shit's like right there, bro. But yeah, I remember playing your Saturn. Um, I think you only had a couple games for it, and my cousins Sam and Beth had a Sega Saturn, and I played a couple games over there. wasn't really wasn't really all that impressed by the Saturn, so I didn't own one until later on. And there are games on the Saturn that are way worth playing. But yeah, Dreamcast. Back to Dreamcast. Dreamcast is still just let's see here. Let's see here. Let's check out some shit. These are Dreamcast commercials. So if you never played a Dreamcast, I don't know. I was so fucking pumped when I saw a Dreamcast for the first time and played Dreamcast for the first time. Yeah, these are Dreamcast commercials. What a fucking amazing system. Oh, hold on. Yeah. I definitely remember, Scott, you had a game called Man-X TT Racing, and it was a motorcycle racing game. Yeah, I got a crazy memory, bro. These commercials were intense, bro. This would have been a Japanese commercial, obviously, but yeah, dude. Sonic Adventure. Man. And I love the look of the Dreamcast. The way the console looked just seems so, like, definitely next gen. House of the Dead 2. I played a shitload of that game.
Ryan, you're gonna get roofed.
Shut up, quadruped.
It's thinking.
Oh yeah, I'm feeling the love. You feel the glove. But what's your name?
Gary Payton, but they call me the glove.
How you feeling tonight?
Yo, I'm feeling the love.
Feel the love, glove.
Yo, Sonic! Man, stay off the light speed.
My bad.
Oh, man.
On Sega Dreamcast, it's thinking.
Dreamcast was so awesome.
You guys got it made, Randy. You have no idea how it was back in the Genesis days.
Rayman.
Thing couldn't adjust. Look what you got. My receivers couldn't do that, and our defense sucked.
Yeah, the NFL games were next level on this shit.
You better appreciate what you got, Junior. Hey, let me go.
I think Ojimbo got hold of a bad taco.
Hey, I'm a legend.
NFL 2K on Sega Dreamcast, it's thinking.
Coming to a Dreamcast near you.
Is this Soul Calibur?
You will feel the passion of Soul Calibur.
Yeah.
Man, she's off the hook.
Oh, man. I remember that commercial. Yeah. I remember that shit. Wow. Core memory unlocked.
Hello?
NHL 2K on Sega Dreamcast, it's thinking.
Yeah, Dreamcast was just next level, man. It had some of the weirdest games that I've ever played too. Like Ill Bleed is a game that stands out to me immediately. I played the game from beginning to end. It is a really weird survival horror game in the way that it works. That's a game that I could easily go back to and try to basically play through the whole game. I don't know if I have a copy that works complete with it, but Ill Bleed is a very, very unique survival horror game. But also not a great game, but I don't know, to me there's some weird charm to that game. But yeah, Dreamcast had so many awesome ass games. I'm trying to just remember all the games that I spent so much time playing, and there's so many, dude. I played a lot of Crazy Taxi. I got decent at Crazy Taxi, especially the challenge mode. I definitely remember playing NBA 2K with my dad. Let's see. Here we go. I'm just trying to find a compilation. It's so many crazy games. Like, if you ever played Hydro Thunder in the arcade, it had like a solid arcade port of Hydro Thunder. Yeah, I don't know. Dreamcast just, to me, graphics wise, was perfect at the time. Like, I didn't really feel like there was any bad. I'll get rid of that. There we go. I don't feel like there was any really bad games that I owned for Dreamcast that like weren't playable and probably replayable for the most part. There wasn't very many games that I played that were bad on the Dreamcast. So I did find a compilation, but it's really ridiculously long. Carrier is another amazing. Let me see if I can find the spot where Carrier is. Yeah, this game was amazing. I would still play this game. Yeah, I don't know. For its time, it just looked amazing. There's some Crazy Taxi.
Stop. Take me to the cable car.
Okay,
Up on the hill.
better hang on.
There were so many great games for the Dreamcast. It just looked so clean at the time. Here's Dynamite Cop. Dynamite Cop was crazy. Echo. Yeah, it looks so clean at the time. This is one of the best looking Sega Dreamcast games. I definitely played some of this. Yeah, ECW Hardcore Revolution. Wow. Gauntlet Legends was on Dreamcast. Like, that's... Fur Fighters. Yeah, this was a crazy 4-player game. Yeah, Gauntlet Legends. If you loved this game in the arcade back in the day, this was like a true home port. A lot of decent shooters on the Dreamcast too, if you're into that type of game. The Giga Wing games are amazing. I don't know, but Grand Theft Auto 2, my fucking nostalgia for Dreamcast is probably, out of any system, it would probably be Dreamcast, PS1, PS2, and then OG Xbox, because I did have a lot of really cool gaming experiences on the OG Xbox and PS2 for sure. I played the shit out of both of those consoles. Own both those consoles. Like I said, I still own my not my original, but I own my Xbox that I once had a stand-up arcade built around. And it's just still to this day one of my favorite systems. But yeah, I do love more modern games, but those games, all the games that I talked about tonight, and I could do, I could do individual videos on, my top games for each system. I could definitely do that because, there are so many games that I just ended up loving, and from those days of gaming, I just think that there were so many original ideas at the time, and not that modern gaming doesn't have newer and sometimes better ideas, but I think during those times, gaming was just a whole different thing. Especially, PS2 Dreamcast days were crazy. And, like a system that I didn't even talk about is GameCube. GameCube's another one that, like, I didn't own a GameCube until, like, probably, I want to say I was maybe 17 or 18 when I got my first GameCube. I definitely remember going to, like, it was like an EB Games, and I bought a used one, and I don't even remember the first game that I bought for it. It might have been Luigi's Mansion, which is a great game, especially if you're a Mario fan, but you kind of wanted to experience something a little different. And I think that's something that could be talked about, is nobody expected that shit when GameCube was launching. I did have a lot of memories with GameCube, but like I said, for me, the standout ones I've already talked about is, I love Dreamcast. I think it's an amazing system, and some of those games still hold up And again, there's something to be said about the Dreamcast library, because there wasn't that many like terrible games on Dreamcast. Like, it wasn't a bunch of shovelware and bullshit. Like, most of their library was solid games, and you know, obviously you're going to find that one game that just doesn't do it for you, and other people might like it, but there were just a lot of unique games on Dreamcast, and I think what they were like, that was the first time I ever used a browser on a console. That was insane, dude. That was one of those you had to be there moments, you know. Dial-up internet was a fucking major thing, and you know, we had a home PC, but I didn't play games on it. It was just for, like, you know, surfing the internet. It wasn't anything major. But yeah, when we finally could hook the Dreamcast up to the internet, and I still somewhere own the Dream Key, which is the disc that allows you to browse the internet on Dreamcast. I always thought it was just a neat thing that Sega offered. Yeah, dial-up was fucking terrible, but I believe it, Scott. I believe it. Yeah, man. Well, dude, maybe someday I'll have to bring my Dreamcast over. We can browse the interwebs on a Sega Dreamcast. It was just really crazy ahead of its time, but at the same time, like I said, it not selling with a DVD drive, and the whole Shenmue incident, that pretty much ruined that pretty much ruined the Dreamcast and Sega. But yeah, if you grew up with a Genesis and even a Super Nintendo, you know, like, I have no hate for any of those older consoles. Actually, I play yeah. Yeah, as soon as a phone call came in and shit, it would like boot you sometimes unless you had call waiting. That's the only way that you could fucking get around that shit. Oh, the 90s, man. Late 90s were crazy, dude. Especially gaming-wise. I don't know. Dreamcast was major around that time, and I was still playing a lot of N64 probably around that time. But yeah, I think that you know, those older consoles, there's not many that I hate, you know, and I don't really talk a lot about handhelds. I had a decent experience with Game Boy, and I had a Game Boy Color growing up, and had a solid experience with all the games that I had on there. But I just was never really into handheld gaming as much until, you know, probably around the time, like, I really like what Switch did with allowing you to play the system handheld and then docking it, which is part of the reason why I bought a Steam Deck. And if you are a lover of old games and you don't want to keep buying all these bullshit ass games that are out nowadays, and you want to revisit all, if you're looking for an emulation fucking powerhouse, buy a Steam Deck. It's, if you're at even close to like really loving emulating, it's way worth it. And obviously, I really just believe in preserving these games, and not to mention, like, if you buy a Nintendo game nowadays, if you bought an NES game right now, Nintendo's not making any money off of that. And now resellers have pretty much destroyed the video game market. So, as far as like the cost of games, and I'm not spending hundreds of dollars for a game, and especially games that I owned at one point or another. I'm definitely not doing that. Yeah, I think that handhelds have their place. I have played some DS games, and I owned a 3DS at one point. They're all cool things, but if I'm gonna game, especially nowadays, I kind of want a full story experience, and you can get that out of a Switch and everything now. I don't like playing games that are, this game it draws you in and then it ends up being 8 hours long. And that's my kind of my gripe with a lot of modern games. I just don't look forward to AAA titles like I used to. And a lot of my time recently has been spent playing old games or games that I played as a kid, and I'm just like going back to them and just really enjoying that shit. So I think that was part of why I wanted to do this. It just made sense. If I'm going to play these games, it would be cool to have it documented, and just me enjoying the shit out of games that I played at one point in my life and didn't play through. Yeah, dude. I just don't look forward to a lot of modern AAA titles anymore. I don't buy the next Call of Duty. I don't know. I don't do all that shit anymore, just because I feel like there's so many times where like I bought pretty much the same game ultimately year after year after year. And I don't know. There's just not any AAA titles that really out there that just like blow my mind, But yeah, that I play a lot of more retro games now than I have in quite some time, and so I probably will at some point get through some of these older games that I grew up playing, and just unless I just can't do it. There's some of those games back then that are just you just aren't playing through this game unless you really put a whole lot of fucking effort into learning all the patterns and everything like that. So yeah, I think that that was the point of all of this, this whole channel and everything, was just people that enjoyed those old school gaming experiences, or if it was a movie or, toys that you had as a kid. I just felt like it would be a smart place to... Yeah, Need for Speed was awesome at one. I grew up playing the first Need for Speed games, especially Need for Speed 2. I played a lot of that on original PlayStation. But yeah, I don't know. Going back and playing a lot of these old games that I grew up playing is like, definitely takes you back to those times where, you did make these memories with people that you grew up with, or your siblings, or even your parents. I think gaming just brought people together in a way that, especially in the 80s and 90s, that's totally different. Most people play games online nowadays, and not that I'm not a person that does that, or doesn't play online, I should say, because I've played plenty of games online recently, but it's just not something that I enjoy, and I kind of, look back to the old days of these games that we used to sit and play together, and everybody could sit and enjoy them and have fun at your house, and like it just brought people, you laughed with people about certain moments in games, and it just overall, I think that gaming, especially in my life, yeah, at times, early on, it definitely got out of hand because I like I said in the beginning, I kind of used gaming to escape just certain life situations, I guess. And so yeah, I think everybody has that issue at some point or another where they catch themselves into like, hey, I'm getting too much into this, or I'm getting too much into that. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think there should be more shit like that, Scott. Like, dude, even old school like LAN parties where you hook up like, even if it was a PS2 or a PS3 or an OG Xbox, where you hook up multiple consoles to just a router, a LAN router. And I don't know, dude. I think that retro gaming is crazy in a sense of there were all these games that I grew up playing, and I have all these crazy memories of them. And it's like more recently, I've kind of been bored with gaming in general. So it's like, why not go back and try to beat some of those games? Like, I think that was the driving force kind of behind me beating Mike Tyson's Punch Out, which, as I've stated before, kind of started to pick up traction around the time that it happened. I did it like, I think it was New Year's Day that I beat the game. I tried to beat it New Year's Eve, and I got close, but yeah, New Year's Day I beat Mike Tyson's Punch Out for the first time, and it kind of picked up traction and was more of a reason for me to kind of do this full time, in a sense of anytime I'm gonna play a game, a retro game especially. And I still play some modern titles, that's kind of my whole thing. If I just stream a game, and I don't want to necessarily beat it, then I'll just do that. But I do want to, I just beat Clock Tower not long ago. Yeah, I think that it's just cool to go back and, like, the other day played, like I said, some Castlevania Bloodlines, and it's a game that I kind of grew up playing on the Genesis, and just think it's a great game. It's a hard game. Yeah, you know what? The crazy part about it is I had a blast playing games like Dead by Daylight when, the at least the first 3 to 4 years that it was out. And it's I don't know. Some of those games change so much. So I think that's kind of why I've found myself either getting into these single player story driven games more recently, or playing retro games. Like it was really cool to go back and play Clock Tower from beginning to end. I haven't played that. I hadn't played that game like seriously since I was, I don't know. I don't know how old I would have been. 13, 12, somewhere around in there. Somewhere around in there. 13, probably, when I played Clock Tower. Like, yeah, I just don't think that there is those gaming experiences anymore, dude. Like, Ark is and could be a blast still to play to this day. Like, I still think it's a great game, and it's a great game to play with your friends. I just, I don't know, like, I personally have gotten to this point gaming where I just want to kind of replay old games that I played before and didn't put as much time and effort into them as I could have. And I mean, there's so many titles that, I played back in the day and never finished them. I was going through my PlayStation 1 list the other day and was just like blown away by how many of the games that I had actually played, but most of them I hadn't even finished. And I kind of want to, for now, keep my, like, the games that I'm playing through from beginning to end. For right now, I'd like to keep them kind of like horror related. That's why I did Clock Tower, and I've kind of been trying to do that. Yeah, I played through Punch Out and everything like that, but I think the next game that I play will be, I don't know if it's going to be Castlevania Bloodlines, because I don't know if that's a game that people are going to want to sit there and watch me die and play the same level over and over and over again until I, get the game down and I'm fucking somewhat decent at it. But yeah, I think there's so many games that I could go back and play through the whole game and experience in it, as an adult now, and I think that's another crazy thing is some of these games that I remember playing as a kid, I didn't really, most of them I didn't really, especially around early PlayStation 1 days, if it had a story, I just like skipped the cinematics and shit. Like, I just played the game, and it's like I was never drawn in that way until, a little bit later on PS1. But yeah, I think that I am probably going to end it here. So I've been live for 2 hours and 5 minutes. And again, it's no different than any podcast episode that I've done so far, where I could literally go on and on talking about these old systems for days. Yeah, I find myself more drawn to story-driven games now that I'm older and my brain has more of an understanding of certain things that, like, I didn't really give a shit about when I was younger, I think most people don't realize there are some story-driven games out there that might grab you, like, no different than a movie, no different than your favorite movie would, games like BioShock Infinite, like a game like that storyline wise, or The Last of Us, they're just as good as movies to me, but you're experiencing the whole thing and driving the game yourself, so that's kind of what always made me continue gaming. I just loved that part of it, the storyline part of it. And yeah, thanks for stopping in, guys. This video will be up, like I said. You can check out my Discord. There's an invite link in my bio on my YouTube page now that you can just click and automatically be in the Discord server that I have set up. And I only have 2 rooms set up right now. I have a general chat, and I have a voice chat set up, and I have a rules page. But yeah, dudes, thanks everyone for stopping in. And yeah, if you're interested in my Discord, it's now linked in my YouTube bio. But yeah, I think that is going to do it. And like I said, next time should be I don't know if I'm going to stream some games tomorrow or whatnot, but I really do plan on doing the episode about Rocky Erickson on Sunday with my dad. So yeah, but I will leave you guys with some music. Thanks for stopping in, and you guys have a good night too. Peace.
Old Spice is the greatest smell in the NFL.